Hey friend, before we get to the episode, I have a free gift for you today. Do you want to start a podcast, but maybe you feel like it's probably too expensive, it's too confusing, and too time consuming? Well, you need my podcast equipment guide. It's the 5 things I could not record my podcast without, and they all cost less than $100. I'll talk to you with direct links of what to buy about the physical podcast equipment, podcasting softwares, hosting, and more, all in this free guide. It's everything you need to feel ready to start a podcast today. So go get it at elizabethmccravey.com/record. Now, here's the episode. All right, friends, I am back from my podcasting hiatus. And if you're listening this live, I've taken March, April, and May off from airing new episodes. And I've never taken a break like this in 6 years of podcasting. So it felt really wild to do. And if you want to hear the story of why I did it and why I took a break and all that, go to the episode before this one of 307. I share all about it there. And that's also a really great episode in general. If you're considering changing and pivoting in your business, just to get some insight and advice from someone who has also done some of that. But now I'm back for a bit and I have about 5 weeks of episodes for you before I take my maternity leave, in which there will be some episodes airing then too, which I'll talk about in this episode. But it was so hard picking what all to talk about on these 5 episodes because I'm like, I have a lot of ideas that came to me over this break. So anyway, I think you're going to love these episodes over the next few weeks in June. And today I'm going to share a little preview of what's coming, what my podcast break was like, how it affected revenue to not air episodes, what I've been up to behind the scenes in my business and in my personal life. I'll share what this pregnancy has been like. I'm pregnant with baby number 3, if you didn't know. And then I'm going to share some like random personal things like about the new car we got, our family beach trip, just like fun chit chat stuff. And I'll be back next week with a more typical for me, like business focused type of episode. But this will be a fun chit chat with lots of business and personal all kind of woven together. So let's dive in. Hey guys, I'm Elizabeth McCravey, an online educator for entrepreneurs, website designer, wife, boy mom, and your host for the Breakthrough Brand podcast, the show that's all about pulling back the curtain on how to actually build a successful business. I don't skim the surface around here. If you want to dive deep into the nitty-gritty details of what it takes to run a sustainable business that fits your unique lifestyle while standing out in a crowd, then you are in the right place. I created a multiple 6-figure-a-year business in my early 20s, and now in my 30s, I'm still running that successful multiple 6-figure-a-year business on just part-time hours now as a working mom. I'm here to share everything I've learned and everything I'm still learning because I believe that the keys to building a thriving business should never be a secret. Here you'll find episodes that are actionable, direct, and fun, like friends chatting business over coffee, and a fresh, honest take on the reality of being an entrepreneur. If you're ready to master online marketing, website design, personal branding, mindset, time management as a busy parent, scalable and passive income, and business strategy, then this is the podcast for you. It's time to build your breakthrough brand. Let's do this. Okay, so just to recap real quick, before this break, I'd had my podcast active for 312 weeks. So 312 weeks of content creation in my business, which is how I had landed at 307 episodes for the break, which was insane to see because that was only 5 weeks in like 6 years without an episode. And there were actually more than that I'd skipped, right? Because I had weeks where there was a recast or 2 episodes or even 3 episodes in a week, but generally that was what the math came out to. And basically what that means is I take off a week or 2 around the holidays and that's it. So this was my first real break from podcasting since I have started a podcast. Even when I've had my last 2 babies and done 2 maternity leaves, I've aired episodes generally the whole time. So doing just 3 months of no episodes, not when I'm on a maternity leave, but just like when I'm living life, felt really huge for me. And it felt weird at first to not be creating content. So that was one thing I said, like, I don't know how it's going to feel to like all of a sudden go from like always in content creation mode to no content creation mode. So it did feel really weird at first, but I did get used to it pretty quickly. And I feel like I enjoyed the break from making long form content. Again, I love this type of content. I'm very excited when I had this on my to-do list today to like sit down and record some episodes, but it was still nice having a break. And you can want a break from good things in your work, which is something I talk about on episode 307 when I really explained why I was taking a break. Like, you can want a break from things you really like. You can still need a break from it. That's how you avoid burnout. But I feel like I really practiced that concept during this podcast break of like wanting and being happy and content with taking a break from something I love and seeing how it feels, and taking a break to focus on other things I love. So now I want to share, though, again, I have so many different topics we're going to go through today, but I want to talk about God's hand in the break. So if you didn't know, I'm a Christian, and that plays a huge role in my business, personal life, everything. But I truly felt like God had his hand like so big on this break as I reflect on it. And when I first started outlining this episode, it was like partially like my journal entry time almost, of like reflecting on this break that did feel really hard to do, but it felt very needed, and also like the right timing, which I'll explain why. But as I'm recording this right now, I am 33 weeks pregnant on the dot. I'm still during my podcast break. You'll hear this when I'm 35 weeks pregnant, but I need to record sooner to get this to my team and everything. But during these 3-ish months of time not airing episodes, I've done a lot in our personal and family life that I think I needed the mental space to think about and work on. And I didn't realize that until I was given the mental space and energy and break from this podcast. And the break helped me have all that, though. So again, I wasn't taking a break from my whole business, but I was taking a break from a really big facet of my business, which is this show. So for example, though, during this break, again, this feels so crazy to me, and maybe some of you guys can understand why this feels crazy. I don't know if I'll be able to explain it well enough for it to make sense. But during this break, I figured out what my birth hopes and plans are for this third baby. When really in my pregnancy, up until like 22 weeks, that was about when I started really thinking about it, which again was when this break started, which I'll talk about. But up until 22 weeks, I had not actually decided yet if I wanted to try for a VBAC or have a repeat C-section. If you did not know, I had a vaginal delivery with my first, and then I had an unplanned C-section with my second, Ethan, and I'll link to their birth stories if you want to listen to those in the show notes. But a VBAC means vaginal birth after cesarean. And so typically, when you've had a C-section, with your next pregnancy, it's like, okay, we're either going to do a repeat scheduled C-section, or we're going to do what's called TOLAC, which means trial of labor after cesarean. And then when that happens as vaginal delivery, it's called a VBAC. So anyway, I knew a decent amount about these things, but I hadn't really considered like what I wanted to do. I was like just kind of almost avoiding that, too busy, not thinking about it. And then I was also at the same time, like if I wanted a hospital birth or a birth elsewhere, if I was going to go for a VBAC. And so what hospital? Like, do I want to be with the same hospital I was with last time, in that same group, or with somewhere else? And I just hadn't really thought about it. So obviously I'd been getting prenatal care my whole pregnancy, but even with that prenatal care, I had a lot of unmade decisions, which is okay, right? Like, you don't have to decide all that kind of stuff until later in pregnancy. But I was kind of getting to the point where it's like, okay, I need to start like really, really like deliberately thinking and praying about this. And those unmade decisions, I think I was honestly not addressing because my brain felt too busy to really address them. And because, I was I found out I was pregnant with this baby when I was only 7.5 months from having had my C-section with Ethan, and from Ethan being born. And I feel like I was at a place where I hadn't really processed his birth all the way yet. And at the same time was I wasn't really aware of your options after a C-section. Like I was somewhat aware, but like I hadn't done all the research yet because I wasn't thinking about having another baby yet, but here we are. So anyway, I felt like my brain was too busy to really address a lot of it. It's really cool because I can like literally see it on my calendar. And when I was outlining this, I looked, I was like, oh my gosh, so cool seeing how God worked in this way. But as soon as this break started, God gave me the clarity I was waiting for around birth. And it was like, I had been kind of thinking about it, but not making a decision and not doing research. But it was like, as soon as the break started, I started doing research, I had clarity. And it truly is so bizarre to me to look at the evidence of God working. But literally the week before my episode 307 aired, so whenever that was, I got the clarity I was looking for around birth. And then I immediately started taking action on that clarity. And that was the week that I was officially on break from recording episodes, even though I still had one to air, right? Because that's the week that episode aired, but I work in advance on this podcast. So my break had already started. So as soon as the break had started from a working perspective, basically I had clarity on something that I had not had clarity on for months before that. And I do have a different provider than when I started this pregnancy, who I had to like go out and find. So that was something that, I said, like, I got clarity, like God gave me clarity on this. Then I went out and found a new provider. And I started this journey of clarity and action when the break started. And I just think that God is so good in that way. I could literally cry talking about this, but he really does just work in his timing, and he is sovereign over our lives and our decisions. And when I think about the nudge I got around this break, I talk about this in episode 307 if you want to hear it. But last year, sometime in the winter was when I started feeling like God was telling me to take a break from the podcast. And it was so hard for me at first. Like when I decided to take it, I was like, oh yeah, like I felt ready when the time came. But when I first started hearing God's voice telling me, Elizabeth, you need to take a few months off from airing podcasts, my response was like, no, that's hard. I can't do that. Like, why would I do that? I don't want to break. And when God was sharing this with me, like, take a break, there wasn't like an urgency around the break. It felt more like a gentle nudging of like, this is something you need to do. But like, it wasn't like a take a break starting in January, because that actually did not make sense for my business. I think that would have been a poor decision. But I felt like more like a gentle nudging from God. And then I decided to do it. And the time made sense for it to be March through May. But then it's like that timing also made sense in my life, because that's when God gave me the clarity around this stuff relating to birth at the time it needed to be made. Like the decisions I ended up ultimately making, like that waited too much longer to make those decisions. I would have struggled to find a new provider, because I was already like 22, 23, 24 weeks pregnant, where, most people, you pick your provider a lot sooner in pregnancy. But I feel like if I were to screenshot like my Apple Calendar the week that this break started, I mean, you really would just see that like the appointments aligned with the break, the calls to like make my birth team decisions, and the booking of things literally was aligned with this break. Like it all happened at the same time, which I think was just God's hand in it all. And so if I sound like I'm being vague about birth stuff, I am intentionally being vague, because I'm not sharing birth plans this time on my podcast or anywhere except for like some close friends and family. But I will share the birth story after our daughter is born, which if you missed that, we're having a girl, which I'll talk about that too. But I'll share that on the podcast, on an episode and on social media. I definitely will record her birth story the same way I did with my two boys. But I feel like I get more and more private as a person the more children I have. And with Colin, when I was pregnant with him, I shared a lot about pregnancy and birth leading up to it, which were really fun episodes. I know many of you guys have shared with me that like, oh, I loved your first trimester, second trimester, third trimester recaps. And I will also always cherish those episodes myself. And with Ethan, I shared some, but less. And this time I'm erring on the side of like less, even more so than last time, because that is what feels good to me. But again, I will for sure tell you guys about everything after she's here and it all plays out. So anyway, other ways God worked during this break, besides me getting like the insane clarity on birth stuff, but we happened upon a lot less childcare for the boys during these 3 months off. Kind of just at random and really unexpected. It's the kind of stuff you can't plan for, and I was not planning for. And I had to step in more and work less as the parent between me and Adam, who are both working parents, has a more flexible work schedule. And again, I think it worked well that I was taking a podcast break, because that did give me more time back in my business. Again, I was still working, but it made it less stressful to happen upon less childcare. And the childcare stuff was like, we had a lot of kids getting sick. We had random school closures. Our nanny, who is with Ethan 2 days a week, which are like my 2 big work days, she was like traveling and out and things like that. So it's just like a lot of like, oh wow, I don't have that many work days in these 3 months. And then we took a trip and all that kind of stuff. So that was like, felt really nice that this aligned with that. And some of the personal things I'd mentioned in 307 that I was going to be working on, I am in my new office. So I've moved offices just in this one house 3 times now. And I think over the 9 years I've had my business, I think I've had 7 offices, like between the different places we've lived. So I've had a lot of offices, and now I'm in my new office recording this. I still need to get a good rug to help with noise. So I feel like the podcast quality might be a little different than we're used to. It's also an insane thunderstorm outside right now as I'm recording. So I'm like, oh my gosh, lots of lightning and thunder happening. Anyway, I'm in my new office. I have that generally set up. We started on baby girl's nursery with the wall painted, curtains hung. I put new knobs on the dresser that was Colin's old dresser. Now it's going to be hers. And I've done some other things in there, but it's definitely not done, but it's like getting closer, And we got a van, which I'm going to talk about. We bought a new car. We sold an old car. So that was like a big undertaking, right? And that's a great example of like, that was something that like me and Adam both managed together, but like I was the one that listed the car. I met the people when they paid us and we sold it to them. And then I also was the one that like went and test drove cars to like find out what car we wanted. So that was all stuff I needed time for, right? In my life to be able to do. I had a baby sprinkle for baby girl, which was really fun. I took action on like childcare plans for like Ethan and Colin going forward as we kind of move into this next season. We went on an awesome family beach trip. And then now, while I'm still on break, but again, I'm starting to record again, but we're about to host extended family at our house for like a long weekend. So we're going to have a very full house because we're having my brother and sister-in-law here and their 2 kids all sleeping in our house with us. So full house, going to be really fun. And I did get to some of the business things I wanted to work on, but there were other things I did not get to. So like, I thought I was like, oh, I'll blog extra because I'll, have time for that. I did not do that because I felt very stretched thin on work days. Like I've said, I also have a lot of appointments for pregnancy and then not that much childcare to begin with. So it just feels like we have a lot going on. And I truly felt like at times appointments relating to pregnancy can feel like a full-time job on its own. Adam and I have joked that feels that way. Around 25 weeks pregnant, this pregnancy, I started doing pelvic floor physical therapy and the chiropractor a few weeks after that. And I see both of them once a week or every other week, kind of depending. And so it's like, those are really time-consuming appointments to do, right? So it's just, there's been less time for some things. One thing I have worked on in my business that's been like probably my biggest focus on this break is new template designs, which I'm so thrilled about. And actually, next week's episode will be about 2 of those new templates that I'm launching. I'm so thrilled about them. But I've been working behind the scenes on new templates. There's another one that's like close to done, but not done yet. But I am going to just start with launching these 2 before this baby comes. But yeah, I'm really excited. These are different than what I've typically done for templates. So I'm excited to talk about that next week. But that's probably like when I look at, okay, like Elizabeth, what have you been working on when you're working? That it would be like the biggest thing is like lots of time and show it, designing, a lot of time in Illustrator, planning and conceptualizing the templates. And yeah, just a lot of work on that. And then also a lot of work on like the marketing side, right? Because like a template, you design it and then it's like, okay, now we got to like add it to your shop. You got to set up the cart for it. You got to set up the automations. You got to make the trainings for it. You got to do all the screenshots and the promo materials. Like it's so much work. So that's where I'm at right now as I'm recording this, is like getting all of that ready. But I've been mainly designing the templates. So I'm going to share more of what I've kind of been up to this break. But first I want to say, if you feel God calling you towards something, a change in your business, a change in your personal life, I just want to encourage you as someone who felt that calling and just did it, to listen and obey. And sometimes that does mean taking it slow. So he might be laying something on your heart that's for the next season or something to start working on, but you can't fully do yet. That's how it felt with me with the podcast break. When I started feeling that nudge in December, it's like I have sponsors lined up right now. And I can't just I have team members I'm paying who are counting on this income from new podcast episodes airing. So I couldn't do it right then. But he might be laying something in your heart that's for the next season that you're going to do then. So like for this podcast break, like I said, I couldn't start as soon as I felt the pull. But as I reflect on this break, I truly see God's hand in it for our family, for my personal life, for things related to birth, for my baby girl. And it was so good. And it took me saying yes and then doing a lot of work to take action on it, on slowing something down that had a lot of momentum. It had been going for 6 years, slowing it down, and then reaping the rewards of having taken that break. So anyway, I just want to encourage you, listen and obey, pray about it more. See if it's really God's calling or if it's just something you're thinking he's calling you to. There's a lot of ways that you can kind of work towards deciphering that. But anyway, that would just be a little encouragement for you. So now a little bit more of what we've been up to. I'm going to dive into a few random things. Again, this is the more personal chit chat part of this episode that I know a lot of you guys really enjoyed this. And if this is less of your vibe, I hope you'll like still come back next week as we get into like more business focused content. But this is going to be more about like what's going on with me personally for a minute. So we're having a girl. Like I said, if you missed, I shared it on social media, but I actually shared after I had started the podcast break. So I never mentioned it on here. But yeah, it was so hard for me to believe at first after 2 boys. I just assumed it would be another boy in some ways, but also at the same time, I felt a weird intuition that it was a girl, and the pregnancy felt very different in the like initial like few weeks after finding out that made me question that it was a different gender. And I love being a boy mom so much. I think it suits me really well, but I've always wanted a daughter too. So I feel like our family just feels so like perfectly complete right now with our 2 amazing boys and then a little sister coming. So anyway, I just feel really excited. And again, I love doing all the boy stuff. I feel excited to do the girl stuff too. And it's been really fun for me, particularly working on like a nursery and buying like hair bows and all the girly clothes and things like that. It's just, it feels so different. And also I know in a lot of ways a baby's a baby, so they're going to feel really similar, but it's been really fun doing the girly stuff and the girly nursery and all of that. So we're really excited, and we do have her name now, which we're going to wait to share until after birth. But that took us a while to figure out, even though ironically it was like we ended up going with basically one of the first names I thought of, and that we were liking originally. But yeah, really excited. And I will be sharing on Instagram at Elizabeth McCravey when she does arrive, because I will be likely on the podcast break when she gets here, unless she came like super early. Okay, other things. Like I said, we sold and bought a car. So we sold my first ever grown-up girl car that I had bought as an adult when I was newly married. We sold that to a sweet family who was having it be the first car for their teenager. And I literally told her when she, like the teenage girl, was like, hope you love this car. It's been so great for me when I met them to sell to them. And we bought a van. So we got a Honda Odyssey Elite 2023 or 2024. I can't remember, but one of those, and we are obsessed with it. One of our friends told me when I was telling him about it and giving him like a tour that I should be a car salesman, particularly for the Honda Odyssey, because they just had a baby and I was over there visiting, and he wanted to see it because they're thinking about a van. And he said, I totally sold him on it. So it's like, if you want to talk vans, and particularly the Honda Odyssey, I can tell you about why it's the best. But I knew when I first started, we knew we were going to get a new car because we had a sedan and a Highlander's our other car. But we needed both cars to have more space for having 3 kids who 2 of which are in rear-facing car seats. All 3 are in car seats. And so I pretty quickly realized I wanted a van after researching cars for 3 kids, meeting those requirements. And then in my van research, there's not that many vans you can even pick from, but I was between the Honda Odyssey and the Kia Carnival. And there's also, Toyota has one and Chrysler has one, and there's some others. But in my research, Honda won out, and I did test drive both. But seriously, just such a great car. And I feel like I'm all about doing things that you can to make your life easier as a parent and make things just work more and be more functional. And even with just 2 kids that I'm driving around or Adam's driving around in the van, it makes life so much easier as a parent. And the car is really functional. I love all the different seat arrangements you can do. There's even a little TV in it that we used on our way to our beach trip to play some videos I downloaded to my iPad on it. But anyway, I just love it. I think it has a lot of really cool features, and I love that when you park, you don't have to worry about the doors slamming the car next to you, because they're sliding doors where the kids are. So anyway, really love that car. And it's probably going to be our car for many, many years now. So that's exciting. That was something I did really early on in this break. Another thing that happened is that I had a baby sprinkle. So, with the 3rd baby, you can totally do without a shower or a sprinkle. Sprinkle, if you don't know that term, is just a term for a smaller shower when it's after you've already had 1 baby. So it could be for your 2nd or your 5th baby, But you could easily do without that with a 3rd baby. But I had friends offering to throw me an actual bigger sprinkle at someone's house, and I debated on this. At first we were we actually got into dates and who's going to host and all that. But ultimately I've felt so reluctantly so, but I ultimately decided I'd rather do something more low key this time than a big sprinkle. And it's interesting. Adam and I have both made a lot of decisions this year already, 5 months in or so, to do things smaller. Consciously decide, okay, we're going to say no to that and yes to this. And whenever we have done that, we have never regretted it a single time. Some examples is that normally every single year for many years in a row now, we have hosted a big Super Bowl party at our house. And this year, we just said we're not doing it. We're not going to have a Super Bowl party. It's really close to Ethan's birthday. We had so much going on. And we debated it again. We had friends like, are y'all having your party this year? We're like, I don't know. And we ultimately didn't do it and had zero regrets about it. Ironically, both of our kids were sick that weekend anyway, so we would have had to cancel had we gone through with it. But that was a decision where we decided to just like say no to something. We also did not do a big first birthday party for Ethan. We did like a smaller, still a party with like a cake and food and everything, but a smaller like family only party. And then we also decided not to do a separate baby moon from our family beach trip. And then now this decision, me choosing like, okay, we're not going to do a big sprinkle where it's like 20 something people invited at someone's house and like this big thing, but we're going to do just a smaller thing. And I feel really blessed. I had 2 baby showers when I was pregnant with Colin and then 1 sprinkle when I was pregnant with Ethan. And that honestly felt more similar to like a big baby shower because it was like really nice and was not very low key. So going more low key this time felt like the right move. But I had a few friends plan a tea time, like the high tea that they do at Thistle Farms, which is a cafe in Nashville. And it was on Mother's Day weekend, and my friends all brought gifts, and we played like a little game like you would at a shower even, and took photos and all that, and they brought extra flowers, and it was just so lovely. And I feel like it was exactly what I needed. I felt like I didn't want the stress of like a bigger shower, but it was nice to just gather with like a few really close friends and celebrate baby girl on the way. So really special again. I feel like that was just another one where it's like, I was like, wait, should I do the big sprinkle? I don't know. And I was so indecisive about it. And then it was like, no, like this was the right move. My gut decision, my gut telling me like, no, Elizabeth, I think you want something smaller this time, was right about it. So baby sprinkle, really, really lovely. I shared some photos on Instagram of that if you want to see them. And we also took our annual family beach trip on when I was on this break. So it's funny, we did the same trip last year when I was 2 months postpartum with Ethan. And now this time, a year later, at basically the same weeks, it was like 2 weeks off from when we did it last year. But now I'm 2 months away from giving birth. So it felt funny being there. I was like, last year, I'm like, okay, newly postpartum, wearing a swimsuit and like figuring out like what, a newborn on it, like literally like an 8-week-old on a beach trip. And then this time being like, okay, I'm feeling super pregnant right now. So just very different, but also similar experiences. But we stayed in Seaside, Florida in the watercolor community, which is our absolute favorite place to go visit. We just love trips there. And it was fun this year seeing Ethan actually get to enjoy it versus just being along for the ride like he was as a newborn baby, where you're just kind of like, he's sleeping a lot and he's, we're really trying to make sure we don't have him outside in the heat too long and things like that. But this time he like got to really play in the sand, play in the pool and all of that kind of stuff and enjoy things more. And of course, Colin enjoyed it a ton as well. And I was 30 weeks pregnant during this trip, which felt like pushing it, but still doable. We went like as early as we could to where it would not be cold still. But also like, if we got any later, I feel like I would have felt too pregnant. Like that was going this week. I'm like, I don't know if I could do it at 33 weeks pregnant. But it felt pushing, but still doable. And also, like I said, it was, we saw it as our baby moon as well. And that worked really well. Like I would just encourage anyone, if you're like feeling like you want a baby moon with a later pregnancy, but you're like, I cannot figure out childcare for my other children in order for me and my spouse to get away, even just for like even just like a night. I felt like it was going to be pushing for us. We're like, we don't know. We're not in a place. Our kids are not old enough. Colin is, but Ethan does not feel old enough that we have someone that we could ask to like really babysit them for like an extended amount of time overnight and do all the things. So with that being said, it was like, okay, well, we don't even feel like we can like go stay somewhere close by just for a night. So it felt like, okay, well, this is going to be our baby moon too then. But I would just encourage you like, hey, it can really work. So we got a lot of great one-on-one time together because both boys have the same nap and rest time now since Ethan moved to one nap, which has been awesome. So we had big breaks in the middle of the day where they were both sleeping. And then they were both so tired every day from all the like sunshine and beach and pool and all the like activities that's different than like how active we are on a normal week at home, that they were both going to sleep at like 6 or 6:30 most nights. There was like one night where they both went to sleep later because they had big naps, but like generally it was like very early bedtimes, which led to more time after they were asleep before we went to sleep. So that was really nice. So anyway, you can kind of make a baby moon combined with a family trip. So now I'm going to share a little bit about how pregnancy has been this go around, and then I'm going to talk about how not airing episodes of the podcast has affected my business. That's where we're headed. But like I said, I did trimester updates in pregnancy with Colin on the podcast, and I toned back my sharing to more like a few general pregnancy episodes and some episodes about planning maternity leaves when I was pregnant with Ethan. But I do just want to share here a little overview. I mean, I'm 33 weeks, and you guys are here, so 35 weeks, but how pregnancy has been overall, how it's been different than pregnancies with my boys, different with the close age gap even, what I've been doing during pregnancy and all of that. So I would say this pregnancy has felt very similar to with my two boys. I'm also very out of breath, which is also similar to how it was with them podcasting at the end. But I've generally had easy pregnancies, like all 3 times, which I'm so grateful for. And I know that's often not the experience, but I've tended towards more comfortable and easy pregnancies, which I'm really grateful for. My big thing this go around with a third baby that's different than last time is that my feet are just killing me. Like literally every day, by the end of the day, no matter what I do, my feet hurt. And I think it's because I'm on my feet a lot with 2 kids and like all the random stuff I've been doing around our house, which I'll get into, but I feel like I'm just on my feet a lot. Even as someone who works sitting down, because I don't work full-time hours in my business. But it's also been very challenging at times too, mainly in the last few weeks, like really since getting back from our beach trip where I'm like in the final stretch of pregnancy, so to speak. It's been hard momming while pregnant. So Ethan right now is 14 months old and he is at a fragile but confident walker who wants to get into everything. And he also wants to be carried around a lot, even though he can walk. So he's kind of at that place where like he wants you to pick him up and then he's pointing to somewhere in the house or outside where he wants you to take him. And like right now, both my boys love being outside, like more than anything ever in the world. Like they just want to be outside, playing outside. But Ethan right now, when he wants to go outside, he will go get my sunglasses and bring them to me, and then go get his shoes and bring them to me and say, shoes outside, and like point towards outside. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like it is so hot here in May and June in Tennessee. And it's been really hard on me physically with like that Ethan wants to be carried around a lot. They both want to be outside a lot. I'm hot. I'm like, this is exhausting. And it is like I said, Ethan being like a newer walker, it's very hands-on, like helping him not get hurt. So just a lot of like physical parenting. And Adam has been a huge help with that. Like when we are both parenting together, he is the one that carries the physical load with the kids when possible, which is like so helpful. And I appreciate like he's been amazing always as a dad, especially like during this pregnancy. So really grateful for that. But I feel like when I feel so pregnant and then I'm like, wait, but I still have a lot more time left, but I feel very, very pregnant. Like just a few days ago, our neighbor was like, so you're due in a few weeks, right? I'm like, no, I'm due in like 7 weeks. Like it's still a long time away, even though I feel like I look and feel very, very pregnant. It also still feels so weirdly different to me to have this super tight interval between pregnancies. So I was just about 7.5 months postpartum with Ethan when I found out I was pregnant again. So, I mean, for me, at least in postpartum, I was still in that place of like having clothes that don't fit like you want them to, feeling like I'm in the very new baby phase where everything's always changing, and in that postpartum season, still not sleeping through the night. And it just felt really weird to be pregnant again so quickly when with Collins, like my last time, he was close to 2 years old when I got pregnant with Ethan. So just very different experience going from like 2 years-ish to just like 7 months. So it leaves me like all of that feeling like I've been pregnant or breastfeeding for like 100 years straight, which really does truly feel that way going back to honestly the end of 2020 when I got pregnant with Colin, because I only had 1 month between breastfeeding and getting pregnant with Ethan. So it's just been, and the same thing again, this time I had another month. So it's just been a lot of pregnancy and breastfeeding. And I am hopeful though about the close age gap. So Ethan and his sister will be about 16 months apart, like either slightly less than that, like closer to 15 and a half or so, or like right on the dot at 16 months, depending on when she's born. And I'm in the headspace of knowing it'll be hard to do like the 2 under 2 thing very intensely. But I also think hard can be really sweet. And I'm reminding myself that like I can do hard things. And again, like the hard thing can be so, so sweet. And there's a lot I look forward to about the closer age gap. I was actually wanting our third to be closer in age to Ethan than what we did with him and Colin. So anyway, I know it'll be hard, but there's a lot I look forward to. And I feel excited about having two really close together. And I'm always here for it when people have positive stories about the 2 under 2 life and how sweet it is. I'm like, yes, please tell me more. I love hearing that kind of encouragement versus when you just hear people being like, oh my gosh, it's so hard and impossible. In this pregnancy too, I feel like I've gotten the nesting urge a little earlier than I did with both Colin and Ethan. Ended up working really well, but I have all these different places in our house that I either am wanting to like overhaul or just like slightly reorganize. And some are really big projects like the garage, or, the pantry. And some are smaller, like, okay, this one closet, like let's throw stuff out and like rearrange things. And so I made this master list of like all the different areas of the house that I want to do reorganization to. And I ordered them from easiest to hardest. And I told ChatGPT to arrange it all for me to where I'm doing a few a week between now and my due date. And then I did some rearranging to it myself after what it came up with. But it was awesome. So I have this schedule, have it printed on the fridge, and I'm doing 2 to 3 things a week to organize the house. And it's on a good schedule that makes sense with my life, with like some weeks it being like, okay, this week I have a little more capacity for like a bigger project, and this week I don't. And then some of it Adam is also doing with me, like the garage. But that's been really good. And that's definitely like my nesting urge of like, there's so many areas I just want to get the house organized. I'm getting rid of more things, which anyway, that's been really, really good. So anyway, that's a little bit about pregnancy. I could say more. Again, I feel like it's like the heat with small children to take care of does get to me. The feet hurting gets to me. But generally, I tend to really enjoy being pregnant. And I feel that way this time too. And I can feel a sadness about pregnancy ending, even though I also feel really excited for her to be born. But it can feel like, oh my gosh, like this might be our last baby. And I really enjoy being pregnant. So anyway, that's a little bit about pregnancy. Could say more. I'll stop there. Okay, now let's talk about how not airing episodes has affected my business. And we'll kind of close out with this. So I kind of thought what ultimately has been true would be true, but basically it's hard to tell how it affects a business with such a short break, because 3 months is really not that much time when it comes to airing a once a week podcast. Now, if it was like me airing episodes 3 times a week normally in that 3-month period, it would feel more dramatic, but it's just once a week. So it's not that much time enough to really tell. I've also still gotten really great, consistent weekly downloads of old episodes. Some old episodes that are like new-ish, like my one about how to start a podcast in 2025 gets a lot of downloads. And that one aired earlier this year. And then there's some that are like really old episodes that people are finding and they always go back to and they love listening to. So I'm still getting great, consistent weekly downloads without new episodes airing. And then between March, April, and May, when I look at like the finances for my business, I basically had 2 really strong months financially and 1 not strong month, which also is really typical for me. And May is not over as I'm recording this, but May is going to be a really strong financial month for the business. But a lot of factors contribute to that are outside of my control because of the nature of my business. And it's like it can be hard to attach like results to one specific thing. So like just to give you some like very real insight into like how my business runs on the back end. But like I can literally have a week where hardly any, or even sometimes like 0 new sales come in. Actually 0 is rare for me, but hardly any. And then of course I have recurring payments. So often in my business, there's like a new payment from someone who is on a payment plan, whether that's for a template or course that hits almost every day. But I can have a week where there's like no new sales coming in. And then the next week, it'll be like 4,000 new sales cash in a 5-day period. And that was literally last week for me as I'm recording this, like in May right now. But the week prior, I don't remember exactly how many it was, but it may have been like 2 new sales. And then this past week, I ended up adding it up and it was 4,000 new sales, cash in, not affiliate income or anything like that, just literal sales from my website directly on templates and courses. And that's cash in, not payment plans. So some of those people may have bought a course and a payment plan. So it's only the first of like 6 installments or whatever it is. And I was doing the same thing both weeks. So, that's what I mean when I say that, like, some of it has nothing to do necessarily with what you're doing. It's just like, that was a time when people who had found me through a variety of places, some people listed, they found me on Google, they found me through this podcast, they found me through social media, through an affiliate of mine. They decided to buy that week. And this week, now as I'm recording this on a Monday, could be another slow week. Like, I don't really know, but I'm doing a lot of the same stuff every week to encourage sales. And it just, varies. And sometimes the work you did with like a digital product business months and months earlier, like, again, some of these sales, to use that week as an example, last week, like one person who bought Podcast Success Blueprint, who I've actually been emailing with, she learned about my podcast course from this podcast. Now, she bought it during a time where I hadn't aired episodes in 3 months, right? So it's like, clearly it wasn't an episode that she heard in those 3 months that was new that caused her to want to buy. It was something older, right? So that's a great example of how, like, podcasting is powerful and old episodes do get listened to by new people, by repeat people, whatever. So your work on old episodes is not wasted when you take 3 months off from your podcast, when you take a week off, a year off, like, it's all still there. And those episodes can still work for you and work for your business. But all that to say, I don't have any, like, I'm sorry if you were hoping that I had like some big, like, this is exactly how it affected my business. Because the truth is, I don't feel like it was long enough to have a good grasp on it. And there is other factors involved, right? Like, I don't work full time in my business. Like, during these 3 months, I've had 1 to 2.5 work days where I've been dedicated to working on my business in March, April, and May per week. So not a ton. So it's like, I'm also in a different season of business than I was like 2 years ago or 3 years ago when I did have more work hours, and definitely in a different position than when, before I became a mom and started working a lot less so I can be home with the kids more. So it's just hard to say. So it's really hard to say. But I feel like basically I would say, from a financial business growth perspective, I have like no qualms about this break. There's no like, oh, Elizabeth, if you had just aired episodes during that month, everything would be different. Like, I don't feel any of that. But I also feel very grateful for all the work I put into this podcast for all these years and the episodes that still get played, even when they're older. And I feel excited to also be back airing some new episodes now. So that's kind of like my perspective on it. And I can keep watching even to see, because, June will also, even though with new episodes be airing, like, you could presume it would be affected by the months prior not having new episodes, if that makes sense. Okay, so what's upcoming? So over the next few weeks, I'm going to air 4 more probably new episodes after this one, like just immediately every Tuesday. And then I'll be starting a break again for my maternity leave. And then during my leave, I plan to air some episodes at random too, on Tuesdays always, but not like on a weekly basis. So I just want to say, make sure you're subscribed to the podcast so that when I randomly release something, you're not missing out. Because when you are subscribed, whether it's on Apple or Spotify, and you like go, open up your podcast app on a Tuesday morning, it's going to bring in all the shows you're subscribed to that have released an episode that day. And it doesn't matter if you haven't listened to them in 3 months or if you listened to their episode from last week, it's going to like draw that in. So I just want to encourage you to subscribe so you don't miss those episodes. But I'm going to have some airing during my break. Probably will share her birth story during my break. But over the next few weeks, I have one interview coming. I have an episode where I'm going to dive into some behind the scenes of designing these new templates and just talk to you from a designer perspective about what it was like working on some very niche new templates. And then we have some working mom type episodes I'm going to share. I have a powerful scriptures to pray over your business episode, which I know you guys tend to really love those when they come out. I've done those kind of a few times. So that's just a little preview of what's coming. but I'm really excited about the lineup over these next few weeks. So anyway, hope you enjoyed this. Thanks for listening to the life update stuff and connecting again. And I would love to hear from you. Any thoughts or questions you have in this episode over email. You can email me at hello@elizabethmccravey.com, or you can always message me on Instagram, and I'm at Elizabeth McCravey over there. So anyway, hope you have a great week. Talk to you next week. Bye for now. Hey, thank you for listening to the podcast all the way to the end. I appreciate you being here. And if you enjoyed this episode, then I want to invite you to check out my website template shop too. Over on elizabethmccravey.com, you'll find Show It website templates that are easy to use, strategically designed, and created to help you make more money from your website. Maybe your current website is really boring, maybe it's a challenge to update, and maybe it's even the thing you feel like is holding your business back. Your website needs to be strategically and intentionally designed in order for it to convert your viewers into raving customers, and that's exactly what my templates do. These templates are designed to be SEO friendly on the back end, not just pretty, and also strategic with all the strategies I teach on this show, and they are easy for you to set up all by yourself. So shop them at elizabethmccravey.com/shop and come join thousands of happy customers using these templates. And as an added perk, you can use the code BBPodcast at checkout to get 10% off your template as a thank you for being part of the podcast fam. Again, that's BB Podcast for 10% off any template over on elizabethmccravey.com. Also, if you loved this episode, leaving a rating and review for the show on wherever you're listening or sharing it with a friend is a great way to support this podcast. Thank you again for listening, and I'll be back next week with a new episode.